The following is a very common question that is asked in JavaScript interviews. Here a function print numbers is defined and the way the variables are initialized is a little different than what people are used to. So here it says let I equals to j equals to 7. Now this is a valid statement and we can confirm this by just calling this function. So when we call the function print numbers, you'll see the output that I equals to 7 and j equals to 7. So the first statement that's there in the function is completely valid. And it basically just means that the value 7 is assigned to both j and I. But the main question that's asked here is what if we try to console log these two variables outside the scope of the function? So if I say something like console log I get an error saying that I is not defined in the current scope, which makes sense because its scope should be functional. But if we try to console log j, the same is not true for j and you get the value of j is equal to 7. Hence j also exists outside the scope of the function. Now to understand why this works, we need to understand how this double assignment and initialization statement works. The statement here is broken down into two separate statements. The first one is j equals to 7 and the second one is let I equals to j. And the statement j equals to 7 executes first. Now both of them are valid statements, but if you notice the first one, which is j equals to 7, doesn't have the let keyword with it. And the behavior that we just saw is because of this very reason. So whenever you're declaring a new variable and you don't use the keywords let, const or var, and you just simply say that a variable name equals to some value, what happens is that by default, JavaScript sets the scope of this variable as global. And that's why when we executed this function, the variable j was still visible outside the scope of this function. The first statement here was broken down into j equals to 7, making j a global variable, and then we declared I and initialized with the value of j, which is only present in the functional scope.